What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock you should be looking after for the future. I'm also going to break down what the news, data, and technicals are telling us about the overall market, what's going on with Amazon right now as they just reported earnings, and as of right now it is up, but we still have to be very patient with the call coming up, and also what's going on with the PCE data that's coming out for tomorrow that will shake how the entire market moves. But before I break anything down about all of this information, before I talk about what's going on with Amazon and Tesla, what my price prediction is right now going forward, I do have to mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire community as a whole. And the last thing is, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link down below in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you're guaranteed up to 5 free stocks, each worth up to $2,000. And the best part is, any could be a free Tesla share. The offer ends in just 3 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So Amazon's a pretty big so far. I mean, it's all the way up above the 120 level. That's pretty insane in just one day for it to pump like this after earnings. And this could actually help the market if it does sustain these levels and continues to pump. But if it reverses and it ends up tanking, because it is slowing down a bit right now, if it does end up tanking because of the earnings call, it's just a possibility. I'm just saying it hypothetically. Always be prepared for anything in a case like this, and don't forget about PCE. But now I want to talk about what's happening with the market, what actually happened today. In my video from yesterday, I basically drew out something very important for everyone. I told you guys about how, hold on, let me remove the extended hours and show you my drawings. I wanted to talk to you guys about how we had this falling wedge-like pattern developing on SPY. It looks just like this, right? And I told you that we would likely test the top here if we rejected. So right here, and this is where the test was, if we got a rejection off this area, right here, the market would continue to sink. But if we broke above this, even if we gapped up above it and we just kept going, that would be very bullish. And we could actually break past like 409 to 411 and etc. And the bullish case ended up playing out as we did have two quite solid red days in a row. And now we had a very crazy green day. SPY was up almost 2%, filling this gap up here. And it's actually green in the after hours as well. But the real question is, are we going to continue pumping? Are we about to? Because so far we do have some good signs that suggest that. But I'm always open to other possibilities based off what I'm seeing right now in the data and based off what's coming out for tomorrow. So now let's talk about tomorrow. I just want to note that we have the PCE data report that's coming out. Do not forget that we have core PCE and also the normal PCE report. That is going to be very, very important. If, don't forget, guys, if PCE ends up being higher than expected, this may not be as good for the markets, but I don't think it's going to be as impactful as something like the earnings reports that came out. Just know that core is expected to be a little hot at 4.6%, and also the normal PCE is expected to be year over year up around 5%. I think 4.5%. Sorry about that. But once again, guys, that's going to be very, very important for the market, but not as important as this. We have Intel and Amazon's earnings. I think Intel's report was kind of mixed or pretty good, but Amazon's was pretty good so far. But we have to wait for the big guidance call too, so don't become too comfortable just yet. What else is worth noting is on SPY, we have max band at 407, but we do have a 1.88 put to call ratio. SPY is at around 413 in the after hours, and 900,000 puts are expiring. So the market makers are going to try to pump the markets up, and this will likely continue to hold these levels, if not continue to pump, unless we see something that causes a catalyst for the market to drop. What could that be? Could be PC, it could be something involving earnings. We'll just have to wait and see how that goes. But for now, the market's holding up quite nicely. Now, as far as Tesla goes, I just want to talk about something else that's very important, and that's the fact that Tesla is a very big consumer discretionary stock that is affected by earnings for many different companies and also what guidance tells us. Amazon beats on EPS with 31 cents versus 22 cents. And I find this kind of ridiculous because the expectation was 22 cents. That's insane. What they're basically doing is these companies are not doing great. You have to remember that. Tesla, their earnings was not extremely strong. Looking at other companies like Microsoft, Google, and etc., not extremely strong earnings. What they're doing is they're lowering these expectations. They're making them so low. They're setting the bar so low. So it appears all of these companies are just beating and beating and beating. And they're doing this to help pump the markets. That's part of why they're doing it. There are other factors as well. Revenue is expected to be 124 billion. We got 127 billion. So Amazon did well in terms of EPS and revenue. However, that's not everything. You also have to look at other data. Net sales were above 21.3 billion, above the estimates. Their operating income was also this actually increased for the Q2 expectation versus the 4.74 billion expectation. Net sales for Q2 are once again above what was anticipated. So far, Amazon's popping. It's up pretty big so far. Let's just look at it one more time. Amazon is just holding quite nicely so far. Now it's up about 7%, so it is cooling off a bit. It was up like 10% earlier. And overall, like I said before, we have to be very patient. It is sinking a bit, but let's just be very patient when it comes to the call. Uh, Going into Tesla now, I just want to note that Tesla has been dropping the price of the Model Y uh, right around or right below the average cost of the US vehicle. So once again, pretty interesting sign. I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be referring to EVs, but it doesn't matter. And you can see right here, Tesla has dropped the starting price of the Model Y and now the mid-size SUV cost to $759 less than the average new car or truck in the USA. The Model Y, the top selling electric EV in the US in 2022, starts at about $47,000 according to Bloomberg. And right now we are seeing Tesla continuing with those cuts. Now, this wasn't a major price cut. I think it's just referring to the latest one so far. But in my opinion, this is actually helping Tesla to some degree. And the reason for that is because we're actually seeing their inventory levels continuing to drop again. Once again, they're dropping and dropping and dropping. That's good news for us. Tesla has the potential to give us a pretty decent Q2 now because of this, unless things change later on. However, I do want to talk about something else that's very important for the markets, and that's the fact that when we look at the GDP numbers that came out, the growth year over year for the quarter when the numbers came out was around 1.1%. That's the new adjustment that was made. Jobless claims were a little low, and yet the market continued to pump because seeing the economy contract is telling the markets that the Fed may pause sooner than expected. And I think the market's thinking that the Fed may pivot very soon. Some bonds traders are anticipating that as well. However, there's no guarantee of that. The Fed has no plan to do so. But what could happen is, even though the Fed does not plan on cutting rates, they could end up doing that during the year if things start breaking. And we're getting signs of that happening more and more as the days go on, looking at many of the inverted yields and also the GDP numbers that are getting lower and lower and closer to recessionary numbers. But anyways, for Tesla, what do I see so far from a technical standpoint? Price price ratio is relatively low, but we did bounce a bit, so it is trying to stabilize. Jeffries is giving Tesla a hold rating, and also Tesla tends to be green only about 49% of the time on Fridays. You can see right here that Tesla actually does a lot better during third to fourth hours of the day, also the second to last hour. April tends to be a good month for Tesla. We're approaching the end of it, and a lot of EVs will be releasing their April deliveries reports. Tesla did see about 20.3 million shares shorted, so a slight increase, at least over the last like week compared to like down here and back here. There's a slight increase here overall, and that is part of why Tesla was underperforming. There were some days where we saw over 32 million Tesla shares shorted, and it happened to be on 420, so very interesting stuff. But now the question is, how is Tesla going to move? The real answer is it's going to depend on many different factors. What's good about Tesla is we're getting some decent volume, very close to what the average is, 125 million. And then we also have a lowering um, short volume percentage, which tells us that there could be more relative strength for Tesla coming forward. But now when we look at Amazon, it sank a little bit. Now it's just up about 8%. So it's still holding up nicely. There's a good chance it might try to continue to rally, but we have to wait for the call. But now I want to break down what's likely going to happen for tomorrow. Now we could see a short squeeze for the markets. We could see SPY go for 414, maybe even higher, or we could see the market get rug pulled, and this could be a big trap. Maybe we pump a little more and then we just end up tanking. What do I think is going to happen? Well, it's going to depend on Amazon, the guidance call, and also the very, very big PCE data report. If we're bullish on SPY, this thing is going to fly to 414 to 416, or even could go a little excuse me, could go a little higher. Uh, but I do anticipate more upside if it does continue to pump because of the good news. But if Amazon ends up actually reversing and ends up actually reporting not the best of news during the call, then we could see a big reversal for the markets. If PCE ends up being hotter than expected, that could also slow us down. And if we're bearish, expect SPY to test 411. If that fails, 409, then 406 could come. And if that ends up happening, that's going to affect Tesla. Now, what do I think is going to happen, guys? I'm honestly very, very unsure about how tomorrow is going to go because we do have a bearish divergence developing on SPY. The VIX is very undervalued, signaling that the market might have somewhat of a slowdown. But I'm just not really as sure because Amazon actually beat on earnings and they're holding up okay so far, quite nicely actually. But we still have to wait for more data to be very, very exact. But I do expect tomorrow to be crazy. My best guess would be maybe we pump a little more and then we end up actually cooling off, and this could be a trap. But I'm always open to anything. You have to remember the fact that on Thursdays and Fridays, we tend to have different days where if we pump on Thursdays, we tend to be red on Fridays and vice versa. Um, could that be the case? It's a possibility, but it's not a guarantee. Really, guys, we'll just have to wait and see the PCE report. That's going to be very impactful too. For Tesla, if Tesla's bullish, okay, we could pump for 163 to 166. If we're bearish, it's going to come all the way down to about 155. Now, we do have a bearish divergence on Tesla developing right now, but there's no clear sign of it actually being done developing. So we could pump a little more if it still develops, then I'd be very cautious. Or it could play out immediately and we could see Tesla just get rug pulled. Now, what do I think is going to happen? I don't really know. It depends on PCE and Amazon's call, but I'm always open to anything. And the best thing to do is just watch your reports and levels. If we're bearish, I mean, Tesla could end up coming down. And you have to remember that we have to watch this low right here. If Tesla fails to hold 152, it's going to crash to the 140s. But if Tesla could try to get above 160 and hold it, then it has some potential to hold these levels and even pump a little more for the time being, especially for tomorrow. I will talk more about Tesla in a few minutes, but now let's talk about the charts. If Coinbase is bullish, expect it to come all the way up to 56 and 58.15. If we're bearish, it's going to come all the way down to 50. What do I think? I mean, we could try to pump a little bit tomorrow into open depending on how this earnings goes. But then if we reject off this important resistance, then it could end up coming down as time goes on. Once again, it depends on the data though. We are seeing some tech actually kind of down, like Neo and Microsoft into the after hours. The dollar is looking kind of bullish to me. So this could actually signal some downside in the market soon. I think there's going to be downside coming over the next week to week and a half. We have an inverse head and shoulder forming on the dollar index. If it does get a break to the upside, that could be bearish, but it may take a couple of days, a couple of trading days. We have FOMC in just a couple of trading days, so by early May. Then we also have CPI in under 2 weeks. So all of that will affect the market too. And I do believe that we could see downside as we approach May coming. Could we see one more pump in the markets first beforehand? It's very possible. For Neo, if we're bullish, watch it break above $8 and go for the gap fill at 8.2. If we're bearish, expect a retest of 7.6. What do I think is going to happen? I'm not too sure. I would anticipate it trying to push up and try to test $8 depending on Amazon. If tech pumps very hard, it could do that. If not, it could end up coming down. I have to see the PCE data first to be a lot more confident. But for now, we just have to be very patient. For Microsoft, if we're bullish, expect this thing to get closer to about this 310 resistance. If we're bearish, it's going to come all the way down to about 300 flat and retest that. If that fails, then 294.65 could come. Let's just be patient and see what happens with the Amazon report and also the PCE report. We have to be careful. For the QQQ, one thing that's concerning is even though this is at like 321, this is where it got rejected many times. So we do have a supply zone. If it's bullish, expect 324 to be tested. If it's bearish, it's going to likely come down to retest gap support at 315. This, once again, depends on so much data. The VIX is down pretty hard, almost 10%. It's also near major support. If the VIX bounces off this, which it most likely can, it has a gap here, that would be very bearish for the markets, and that seems very probable. But it also has tested 16.17 many times. So if it does end up dropping lower to retest that area, that would be bullish for the stock market. What it could be doing is forming kind of like a head and shoulders. So maybe it gets a bounce and then it comes down. I really don't truly know exactly how this is going to play out tomorrow. It's going to depend so much on some big data and how the market reacts to it. So make sure you guys are open to anything. Amazon is still pumping. It's up 7% now. If Amazon keeps going, it's going to fly to about 125. If Amazon fails and ends up coming down, I mean, it's going to be a big drop. It's going to take something severe to cause that. It's going to retest 110. If that fails, we could make our way down to start filling some gaps closer to about 105 or so. But that, once again, guys, it's just really hard to predict. And so far, the odds are favoring it holding up. I mean, it's up at 7% so far. But remember, Google was also up 6% at one point. It ended up actually tanking over time. So I'm always open to anything. I'm always going to be very, very capricious and patient. So we'll see what happens during the call. For NVIDIA, if we're bullish, expect 275. If we're bearish, expect it to retest 266. If that fails, there's a gap fill down to 264. All right, so what do I think? I'm really open to anything, but from a technical standpoint, it is looking kind of bearish. It looks like it might cool off. But then again, really depends on Amazon and PCE. For Apple, if we're bullish, expect 170. If we're bearish, expect it to come all the way down to about 166. And finally, looking at the 10-year Treasury yield, this is actually continuing to look more bullish as we have this inverse head and shoulders like structure. If it comes up to fill this gap, this could actually slow the market down a little bit, maybe by next week. If not, if it ends up just rejecting and coming down, that could also help the market pump. Meta is on fire. If this thing keeps going, it's going to approach 242. If it breaks that, 250 could come. If we're bearish on Meta, which is very likely since it is quite overbought, it's going to have to cool off eventually, either on Friday or Monday, most likely. It's going to come all the way down to about 235 and then retest 230 flat. All right. So what do I see going forward right now? For SPY, we're actually kind of green in the after hours. We're just trading kind of flat right now, just waiting for the earnings call for Amazon. It's just a big waiting game. I'm open to anything. It is possible for us to try to keep going. If we do keep going, it is possible for us to retest these highs. You always have to be open to that. I think there's a gap around this like 414 area. I believe there's a gap around there. We could come up all the way up to fill these gaps and test these highs for one more pump if things go as expected, especially for like Amazon. But if there's a rug pull on Amazon, if the data is not good, be open to the possibility of us seeing some downside. Technicals are looking strong so far, but I'm always open to anything because once again, unexpected things could happen, especially because it's a Friday and there tends to be lots of manipulations on Fridays. For Tesla, if it holds 160 tomorrow, it's going to be a good sign. It's going to be very, very nice to see that. We'll see what the data brings. If we're bullish on Tesla, 163, then 166 could be tested. If we're bearish and Tesla fails, it's going to make its way all the way down to about 155. So make sure we watch these levels, and we'll just wait and see. I might be able to try to wake up early tomorrow. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm able to do that, but I'm going to try to give you guys another update. I might be on the road when doing it, so I might have to record the video from a car, but it's okay. I'm still going to give you guys an update. I'm sometimes very, very cautious. It's very important to be cautious and make sure you hedge during big events. And until then, I will give you guys much better prediction videos later on. I know it's been very hard for me this week with so many earnings and so much data coming out. It was really tricky to predict things, but I just want to be honest with everyone. I'm not a perfect person. I will not always be correct. I'm not always wrong either. The majority of the time, I have been correct. If you look at my track record from the past 3 to 4 weeks, and I do my best. But once again, I always want to account for both possibilities, and I want everyone to be open, at least for tomorrow, because of how the market could move and because of the data that's coming out. But until then, remember something, and that is the fact that a recession is most likely coming, looking at the GDP numbers. Recessions oftentimes they almost always lead to big sell offs in the stock market. When is it going to happen? Is the market going to crash? It still could, but so far we're not really seeing true signals of us breaking new lows or even crashing just yet. We have to be patient and we have to wait and see what data comes out. So make sure you guys are as careful as possible in this market. It's very tricky. All right. I mean, we had a super bullish day, then we had two sell off days that were very, very hard. Then we had another bullish day today. The market is just all over the place. So I want the best for everyone. I want to remind you that it's very important to manage risks when trading. If you are going too heavy on one position, no matter how confident you are, there's always the risk of losing money. That's the reason why you have to learn to manage these risks and you have to be very careful with your setups. Okay, so I thank you all for listening. Let's get ready for some crazy, crazy data tomorrow. Expect lots of fluctuations from Tesla. It's either going to rip to the moon or even like cool off a bit. I am seeing lots of volatility too. Crazy days coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Anyways, I have some data, not data, I have some merch for you guys if you're interested in buying anything. And finally, don't forget about the Mumu link down below and in the description. Check it out, sign up, deposit $100 if you want, or any amount of money. The more you deposit, the more likely it is for you to get way more of these stocks. Offer ends in 3 days. Check it out before they run out. Test it to the moon because the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.